Are you a human being? Are you a human being? Are you also a Browns fan? Well, if you said yes to both of those things, then there's a good chance you're probably a little tired of our local Cleveland Brown sports media. Same old thing, day after day, night after night. It's time to hang the cleats up. It's time to pass the torch. If you're looking for something fun, something fresh, something where four people literally smack themselves in the face over and over with hot take after hot take, then my boys at Down with the Browns is where you want to be. It's just good for your soul. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Twitter. Getting down with the Browns. And welcome back. Oh, sorry, that was my best Christian interpretation.
Welcome back to Down with the Browns. We're running a little short staff tonight. Of course, it's me, Mac the Buffalo, Jake from Stat Farm, as well as Dave Disturbed Marine is here. How we doing today, guys?
Good.
Yeah, good.
Silver lining, positive. It's not the end of the world, but it's close.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're gonna get into it in a couple minutes here, but it's one of those where the sky isn't falling, but there's just a lot of looming anxiety regarding the future, especially because flat out, and let's just get into it. Game on Sunday. The Browns lost to the Seattle Seahawks 24-20. And it was a game where, up until the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter, you think that the Browns would pull this out. And then, one last turnover, a big drive by Seattle. And the next thing you know, the Browns are going home with an L. So what are your guys' quick thoughts on the game here?
You go first, Dave.
For me, I mean, it was a tough pill to swallow, and I think most people felt that way. I think that team battled their butts off.
Yep.
It was just such a tragedy the way it ended, and I think it took the air out of everybody. I still just don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know how these types of calls at these pivotal points in the games aren't being talked about inside that building. About, maybe there needs to be somebody else involved in those decision-making things, because I just don't understand it, how you just don't take advantage of the number one defense, although I don't even know if they're number one anymore, to be honest with you. I'm ashamed to tell you that, but still a very, very good defense. How you don't go ahead and pin them deep if you don't convert that third down and allow them to try and win the game for you under 2 minutes. I don't get it. I get it. He wanted to go for the kill shot. I understand it. But you just can't risk it with P.J. Walker. If that's Deshaun Watson, I have no problem with that play call. No problem at all. But that is not Deshaun Watson. That is not even a tenth of Deshaun Watson. And when Deshaun Watson was out there for those 3 passes the other week, he looked awful. But P.J. Walker is not. I was almost hoping to see Dorian Thompson-Robinson just to see if there could be a spark somewhere. But I'm just lifeless about it. And I think if we end up losing to Arizona, I think there legitimately needs to be a conversation about some deeper stuff. But that's just my opinion.
Well, and I put out a tweet 2 days ago here regarding the play calling, and for me, it wasn't just the lack of running the ball. They ran the ball 40 times on Sunday. It's just how they did it and when they did it. Of course, you have that 3rd and 3 call. Looking at it, you have a quarterback that you called up from the practice squad. You have a quarterback that has not completed over 55% of his passes this year, and you're putting him on a pivotal 3rd and 3. Now, like how Dave said, technically, in terms of statistics, the Browns are still the number 1 defense in the league in yards allowed. Okay.
Yep.
And, especially if you're putting in and the biggest part of this defense's problem this year has just been responding after turnovers. Now, they've been okay, but you'll see a lot of the times in these instances where a team will get the ball in pretty good field position and then they'll score. Well, what happened? We had a turnover on a 3rd and 3. Seattle had a bit of a shorter than normal field rather than, punting it. And I mean, Corey Bojorquez as a punter has done pretty good this year and pretty good, last year.
Yeah.
Who's to say that he can't pin them inside the 10 and then make them drive 90 yards? And it,
Right.
So I was seeing a couple things, across social media. Hey, what would have happened? Would you have had the same feeling, watching Seattle drive 90 yards? And you know what I mean? If that would have happened, sure, that would have sucked. But that's also the best plan of attack.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're running with a quarterback that's had 7 turnovers in 3 games now. Now looking at the averages, there's only 2 quarterbacks in the past 4 years that have had a higher turnovers per game on average. That's Kyle Allen last year for the Houston Texans, and that's Will Grier for the Panthers in 2019.
Ugh.
Yeah. And,
It's
it
been
doesn't
that
take a
bad.
rocket
Yeah.
scientist to figure out that they're both practice squad QBs right now.
And one
And
of
yeah.
those games are wins.
Yeah.
Is the crazy part.
Yeah.
One of them, the defense was able to hold on and win the game for us. So
Yeah. And it's just it's just very disappointing that we just put the game in PJ Walker's hands. And then regarding like the rest of the offense, I don't know what it is. And hang with me here because I'm gonna kind of bring it back to the move that the Browns made at the trade deadline. But I don't get the whole premise of trying to run the ball on the perimeter so much. I mean, a majority of the run game this year has been off tackle, whether that's, off the tight end, off the tackle. But here's the thing, as good as a blocker Njoku's been, hasn't been the greatest the past couple games. Harrison Bryant is not a good run blocker. And Jed and DeJuan Jones have struggled. Where's the strength of this offensive line? It's the interior. Ethan Kochick is a top 10 center in terms of, run blocking. Joe Platonio, while in a down year, still one of the best guards in the league. And Wyatt Teller, while he's not a strong pass protector, he's amazing at run blocking. So,
yeah.
You have a strong interior run and, we're looking at a difference of 2 more yards on average between running it inside and running off tackle.
Right.
So, I just don't quite understand it. And I think that, looking at the move, moving Donovan Peoples-Jones for that 6th-round pick, one of the things that they've preached with him has been his blocking, but you throw on the tape as of recent and it hasn't been great. So, it's one of those things to where they have so much to clean up. Now, they did do some good. Let's talk about the good here. They finally got Njoku involved. These past couple weeks, they've more than doubled his targets, and he has shown that he is one of these top 10 tight ends in the league. Currently is 3rd among tight ends in yards after catch and is 1st in average yak as well as missed forced tackles. So, besides him, were there any other offense players that stood out to you guys?
No. That flashed, you mean, and really set themselves apart? No.
The only person I felt like you could make a case for would be Pierre Strong. Yeah,
exactly.
That's exact. And that was just on a couple plays here and there. I feel like he could be utilized more. And really going back to that game, with the 3rd and 3, you could have done, even if you do a pass, you could pass it to Pierre Strong in that same type of play where he got the big carry or the big gain, if you will. And that would have at least gotten us a couple of yards, and it wouldn't have been a pick. That's what I'm trying to get at. It wouldn't have been a turnover. Now, I'm with you guys on they should have ran it. But if you do a pass play, that's a more effective pass play in that situation. And I feel like that's where Kevin Stefanski,
with a real
he struggles the most when it comes to that sense of play calling. When it comes to getting a game plan set, a script, if you will. I feel like he is good with that. But when it comes to pressured moments, trying to make a play or if you will, what's the right wording I'm trying to think of here? When you've got to have a game-changing play, I feel like that's where he folds under pressure, and that's a tough one. But he's gotten a little better at that. But I feel like that's his weakest point of play calling is when the game is on the line.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. It just seems that in the heat of the moment, it just seems like the feel of the game gets lost with Kevin sometimes. Granted, there's a reason why he's a coach in the NFL. There's a reason why he's been given this opportunity, and he's been here for a couple years. But it's really hard to look at PJ Walker and say, I trust you on this 3rd and 3. Just in the first half alone. Now I haven't completely, finished, the entire game. But I counted. There was 8 incompletions where a guy was wide open and PJ Walker flat out missed him. Yeah, and I mean, you can even look at like the score sheets here. Who has the most targets? Amari Cooper. That's great. That's great. He's a star wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 1. He has shown you that he deserves that kind of volume and that kind of target share. But it's now gotten to a point where it's overcorrected in PJ Walker's mind, where he's almost trusting Amari Cooper too much, and now he's force feeding him. And it's just, is Amari Cooper a contested catch guru? Absolutely. There's a lot of
3rd down conversions on the sideline.
Yeah, but if somebody else is wide open, and I mean, there's two plays, and I posted one of them to Twitter before we got on live here, and I'm almost positive it was the same play. Wide receiver runs a hitch on the far left or the far right, and he's wide open by 15 yards. PJ Walker doesn't even look at him, and he is sacked both times. One of them was for a fumble, to which he turned the ball over in the first quarter. And you see that happen twice. You see him miss all these open wide receivers. You see these guys getting open, and he just flat out doesn't see him. It's not that he can't make the throw, which, that off-target pass to David Njoku, like pretty bad overthrow. But PJ Walker's biggest problem is he's just not seeing the field. He's not making the reads. He's not finding the open man. So to me, if I am the play caller for the Browns, I'm looking at that throughout the game and saying to myself, hey, we need a play, and we have the ball and we're up. Meaning that we don't necessarily have to score on this drive. We just have to keep the drive alive, keep the play clock running,
not turn the ball over.
Not turn the ball over, not give Seattle possession with good field position. So to me, it's very hard to put the game in PJ Walker's hands after seeing all of this.
It's criminal. It's criminal is what it is.
Yeah.
It's so unbecoming of a professional play caller. It really is.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I feel like Stefanski's play calling over the last couple of years has improved since Baker left. Last year, there was a lot of questionable stuff that made me furious. This year, you can tell he's gotten more conservative. He's made I don't want to say the smarter decisions because that sounds pretty off-putting. He's made better decisions on 4th down. I'll say it like that. He's not as he's more conservative. I'll just put it that way. But he's calling plays as if Deshaun Watson's out there, and I think he's got it in his mind like, well, PJ Walker's the same type of style as Deshaun Watson, and you can argue that case. But what you were saying, Mac, with quarterbacks needing to go through the reads and seeing the field, that is the one thing that separates your starters from your backups. Starters can see the field, even though a play is supposed to go to, say, Amari Cooper. if that were Deshaun in that moment, he would have saw Elijah Moore and gave him the ball, or Jerome Ford, or what have you. Usually your backup quarterbacks go through the motion of the play as it's designed in the playbook. And that's why when PJ Walker is given a play that's supposed to go to Amari Cooper, his eyes are only set on Amari Cooper rather than everyone else. And of course, he's still learning the playbook. He's not even been on the team for a little over a month now, I think. Not even a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the one challenge, not just with PJ Walker, but with backup quarterbacks in general, especially when they've been off on the practice squad and they just get signed and they're basically learning the playbook as they go week by week.
Jake, real quick, to actually tag on to what you just said. Stefanski has literally said out of his mouth that exactly what you just said. That plan of attack that they have is put in place no matter who is taking snaps under center. They run the exact same thing, and that's part of the problem. Because when Deshaun Watson comes out last week or the week before, throws 3 passes, and we realize immediately that he is absolutely not ready to be out there. You have got, as a leader of that football team and as a play caller, you have got to immediately make an adjustment on what you're going to do and give PJ Walker a chance to be successful. PJ Walker is not Deshaun Watson for a reason. He doesn't make Deshaun Watson money. He doesn't make Deshaun Watson throws. He's not as fast as Deshaun Watson. He's not as powerful as Deshaun Watson. Why in the hell would you employ the same game plan for PJ Walker as you would Deshaun Watson? Like, what in the hell in your brain makes you think that that's a good idea? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. And I love what you just said about what separates a starter from a backup, because I believe that's absolutely true. And that's what I tweeted out earlier today is, listen, and you said about Jacoby Brissett, Mac, and a lot of people were throwing shade at you about that. But let me tell you, Jacoby Brissett can make 2 reads and he won't turn the ball over. Guess what we need to win football games right now with this defense? We need a quarterback that can make 2 reads and not turn the football over. That's it. That's it. And we get W's instead of L's. It's
so let me ask you this, and this just kind of dawned on me. Does the Seattle game remind you of any game earlier this year? Off the top of your head, 3, 2, 1. Any game?
Yeah, the Steelers game, if anything.
And why? Because we are up on 3rd down
and trying to lose the game.
We decide to pass it, and we turn the football over. Now, looking at the defense, were there certain times where you're like, okay, what is this defense doing?
Yes,
I counted 5 plays of over 20 yards, 5 explosive plays. Not great. But here's the thing. So Seattle had a fast start in terms of like how they started this game. Touchdown, field goal. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 following drives. They did not score any points until that 3rd down turnover.
Yep.
And if I'm Jim Schwartz, I'm having a conversation with Stefanski.
Absolutely.
Now,
100%.
Trust me.
Yeah,
trust me.
Dude, what are you doing? Yes.
Because Jim Schwartz has shown you, and were there times this year where the defense just did not have a good start? Absolutely. I mean, San Francisco drove down the field at will. That very first drive and scored a touchdown. And it was almost like they didn't have any kind of pushback from this defense, and yet they adjusted. They had the worst start of their season on Sunday, and they came out 7 straight drives without allowing points. Now, I trust that defense to not allow a 90-yard drive. And I mean, Seattle didn't have to. They had to score a touchdown. They couldn't just get away with a measly field goal at home. It just is absolute mind-boggling. And again, the defense wasn't perfect. They did give up a lot of and like these big explosive plays. They were a run up the gut where not everybody was assignment sound, or Tyler Lockett was open several times. And I'm talking about wide open, a few times. He would get lost in the zone, but again, you kind of have that. And then on the D-line side of things, I mean, outside of Myles Garrett and Maurice Hurst, the rest of the defense, the rest of the defensive line did not have a good game. Not a lot of pressure on Geno Smith. And the time that we did get pressure on him, he escaped out and he extended with his legs. We couldn't get home on it outside of one sack with Myles Garrett. So a lot of improvement needed from the defense going forward, but they certainly did not lose this game. And I really wish that we could have known, because now everybody, whether you're commenting or you're just a fan of this team, everybody is wondering, wow, would have this been different if Seattle had to drive 75, 80 yards to score this touchdown?
Right.
No, they got a short field. So we'll never know.
And not only that, Mac, but the infusion of momentum on that turnover. Let's not discount that, how excited the offense got when their defense turned us over at midfield.
Yeah.
So that part of it as well. So yeah, had they ran the ball on 3rd and 3, got 1 yard, punted, pinned them inside the 20, make them go 82 yards down the field. Whatever you're going to do, I think that game is way different, and I think we would have stopped them, and the defense would have won the game. But because we were stupid, and because we turned the ball over and gave them great field position and gave them a huge momentum boost, they drove down there like a knife through butter and put that ball in the end zone. And that defense was probably so frustrated with the offense and what's going on that I wouldn't discount that there's a little bit of that's what happened in that final drive. Is the defense is just tired of this shit. They are tired of the shit is what's going on. And, I know that sucks. They're professionals and they need to play hard, but we're all human beings. And those defensive players we got, as good as they are, they're human beings too. And they get frustrated by what's going on the offensive side of the ball, just like we do. So, it's just, it was inexcusable the way it happened. It really was. It was such a tragedy. And Matt, a couple things. I think they needed a field goal to tie the game. I don't think they needed a touchdown.
They did.
Because when they scored a touchdown, then we needed a touchdown to win the game. So they would have only needed a field goal. So, they would only had to drive, 40, 50 yards or whatever it was to get into field goal range. But still, I think it would have just been a whole different scenario had we played it smart there.
Yeah. Now, looking at it, I do apologize because I didn't do the research, including this game. But when I was looking at last game with Indianapolis, a majority, like over 50% of the points that this team has given up has been off of turnovers. Now you add another 14 to that. So, Dave, not only are you correct in terms of this momentum and how the defense is feeling after the offense, gives the ball away like that, it's statistically proven that is what's going on. So,
true. Okay.
And it's just like there's just so many, and like Jake said, you could have gone with a different pass play with a more high percentage. I mean, that they're bringing the house, and they ran how many different screens that past game? I mean, Njoku had 3 screens to himself.
Yeah.
And then you add in the Pierre Strong screen that went for 40 yards. So, why not have like kind of like a dump off pass there? Why not, you're throwing it in the, in the middle of the field where there's some traffic, something bad is bound to happen. So, I completely agree there. I really wish, and, and here's the crazy part. So if Kevin goes conservative there, they punt, Browns win the game. Everybody talks about how, wow, for a third straight week with PJ Walker, Kevin Stefanski once again has the Browns winning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you lose, and the 97% of that game, which was greatly called.
I agree.
And, you know, that 3rd and 3, I mean, going into the run game and, talking inside versus outside. And I mean, again, 2.8 yards better on average running an inside versus outside. But, putting the meticulous stuff aside, Kevin Stefanski put a wonderful game plan together. Lots of dump off passes, lots of screens, lots of just getting guys in space. And, he's finally using Njoku, which is everybody is seeing that he is a top 10 tight end. It was always there efficiency wise, but he just never had the targets to justify, to have the targets and to create the production there to justify everything. But now that they lost that game and we saw the 3rd and 3 call, now everybody's talking about Kevin Stefanski's play calling again. So, it's just, it's one of those things to where, nobody's talking about the rest, the 97% of the game.
Well, here, look,
man, beautifully called.
So MC said overall Stefanski has been great. I don't disagree with that. I think overall, if I were to give him an overall grade, I don't know if I would say great because, and here's why, I agree with you guys, the 95% of his play calls I'm okay with.
Yeah.
He seems to make an awful play call at the most inopportune moments at these massive points of these games where he has no awareness of the situation. He doesn't feel the ebbs and flows of what's going on and sticks to his play sheet. And sometimes he makes the craziest calls at the worst time. And that's the only reason why I wouldn't say great MC, but I would say he has been really good. And just like you said, Jake, there's a huge difference in his play calls from last year. He was self-aware. He obviously took criticism very well. He looked inside of himself and he has changed. But somebody, when the game is on the line, somebody needs to come from the booth and they need to sprint onto that sideline and be right next to him. And as soon as he gets ready to make that boneheaded play call, somebody needs to say, whoa, let's take a timeout. Let me talk to you about it for 2 seconds. Stop. Just don't do it because he is killing us in these massive moments. Killing us.
And the crazy part about it is it's not even like looking at it and compared to years past. Okay, so 2021, 2022, the biggest thing is that we were always playing from behind. Now we were playing in Pittsburgh, in Seattle, and we're up in these games.
Yeah.
We don't
very
need
late
the crazy
in the games
play.
we're up.
Yeah. So that was really disappointing. Especially when the Browns possessed the ball for 12 more minutes than Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean,
we outplayed them.
There was 2 times where the Browns had it inside of Seattle's own 10-yard line, and they had to kick the field goal, instead of punching it in. So, there was again, there were some good, and give the players credit. They were in it until the very end here, and 97% was great. But it was just that one
3%
play.
is so big. It's so big.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pros and cons both ways. We could go on for hours with the pros and cons. I mean, most years, if we're playing the Seahawks and we're down 14-0, 17-7, sorry, in the first quarter, we almost don't even have a chance. But the fact that we came back, we played strong, had a great second quarter, had a strong third quarter, especially on the defensive side. Those are good pros that mean, hey, we're starting to learn how we can play from behind. And that had been a huge weakness in the past. We've noticed that that's gotten better. But of course, you guys have named cons. There are cons. But truthfully, certain people are trying, not you guys, but there are people online that are starting to get mad at the defense for not being as destructive as they used to be. And yes, there are certain plays where the secondary messed up, where the linebackers didn't do this or whatever. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be those plays. But for me, it is so unfair to look at a defensive player right now and say, hey, this guy needs to get better, that guy needs to get better, blah, blah, blah.
And yeah, I mean, plan, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, And I mean, yeah, there's probably improvements that the defense needs to make, particularly in the secondary. We're not going to go there though, because they've been playing lights out for the most part of the season.
Yeah.
And if, like you guys have been saying, if it's not for the turnovers, certain play calls, we could be 6-1 right.
Easily.
But guess what?
We're 4-3.
We're still a playoff team.
Yeah.
If the playoffs start this Saturday, we're a 7 seed.
No,
Get
we're
my hands
not.
here.
Are you
Yes,
being
Yeah, we're a
serious?
7
we are
seed.
a 7 seed. We are a 7 seed right now. The Bills are a 5 with a 5-3 record, and we are tied with the Steelers. Guess who owns the tiebreaker? Pittsburgh.
Steelers.
And then, of course, the Bengals game where we beat them 24-3 in week 1 is a big game changer as well, because they are also 4-3, and we own the tiebreaker over them. So we still have a chance of making the playoffs. And the schedule, for the most part, is going to get a little easier. Now, there's going to be the division games. There's the tough games. We've got the Steelers in a couple of weeks, or a few weeks. Ravens in a couple of weeks at Baltimore. We know that's never fun. And we still got to play Cincinnati at the end of the year. And we know they're going to be fighting. But we've got certain games that we should, you know how that goes, should win. We're 4-3 right now. And I know I'm trailing off of the Seahawks game, or away from the Seahawks game. You're 4-3 right now. We've got 10 games left in the season. If we can win 6 of those 10 games, I think our chances are good for the playoffs. I think we need to win. We should win 7. If we're going to pad our chances, but 6 is the bare minimum. But I think that's possible.
If
But-
3 of those 6s are against the Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals, I think 10-6 or 10-7, we have an opportunity to win the division too.
Yeah, I agree. I
think Baltimore is due for a massive injury of some type, and I don't wish that on anybody, but they are just due for something. And I'm not going to say Lamar and jinx them like that, but they have been due for something. And I know they've had some big injuries, but they're due for a big one, like a big hurt, like when we had Nick Chubb ripped out of our souls. They're due for a big one that should affect that team, I hope, because they're looking pretty good.
In long term, I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be in the race long term, because they've got the tougher part of their schedule coming up at the end. That was the one good thing about us. We had the tougher games first. They've got the tougher games at the end, I want to say. And Kenny Pickett is still in and out. I don't think he's playing this Sunday.
Well, he's back in practice with that rib injury. I think the bigger injury, though, is the non-contact hamstring injury to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now,
That's
I was
true.
watching that game, because I was in a great mood up until probably about 6:30, 7 o'clock. Because I was watching the Jags absolutely beat down Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and it was an ugly, rainy game. And Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne just came to play, and it was just amazing and great to see. But one of the things that kind of changed the tide of that game, because it was a real close 9-3 game, and then all of a sudden you're seeing mid-play Minkah Fitzpatrick just drop, and you hate to see it. No matter who the player is, you absolutely hate to see it. But it was one of those to where it wasn't a cramp.
Yeah.
It wasn't it wasn't even that he pulled up. He straight up dropped to the ground. So it's definitely something to monitor going forward and see where he's at. But just kind of pivot here, and I think one of the reasons why they didn't make a move at the trade deadline here, I think that Deshaun Watson, I don't think he goes this week, but he's going to be there for the Ravens game in Baltimore. Because here's the thing, the Browns have to go 3-1 over these next 4 games.
Which is possible.
Yeah, which is possible, but they absolutely have to, because they, we're playing Pittsburgh in Cleveland, which Kenny Pickett's never played in Cleveland. So that's going to be interesting to see how he faced, and he played awful the past 2 games against the Browns, one of which was a Joe Woods defense. Okay. So, everybody keeps talking about, oh, hey, Kenny Pickett's first game against the Browns, he did pretty well. 44% completion percentage. Like, let's just stop with that. So, we have to undo these tiebreakers with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. If we end up losing, in Denver, in that altitude to, fake ass Russell Wilson and, Sean Payton, cool. But, business against Arizona, Arizona's a 1-17. We got to take care of business this week. And we have to undo those tiebreakers because here's the thing, as detrimental as it is losing Minkah Fitzpatrick, Mike Tomlin has made a career out of using what he has. Yeah. And they're still more than likely, and I mean, they're getting Cam Hayward back. So with them losing Minkah, now they gain back one of their best interior defensive player. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how everything unfolds. But at the end of the day, they got to go 3-1 over these next 4 games to stay in the race.
To do that, Mac, who needs to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns?
Deshaun Watson needs to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns.
So, and he's back in practice just to move on to better things. Now, I wasn't very impressed with Hayden Grove today posting 2 5-yard in route throws from Deshaun, and his caption was "The zip is back." I would have much rather seen a 25-yard in cut or post pattern or something where I see him throw the ball with velocity and accuracy. But we need Deshaun Watson under center. That's the only thing for us to have and make this run. He might be able to miss this Cardinals game, but he cannot, like you said, Mac, he cannot miss the Ravens game. He has to be under center and he has to be effective. And it's time. It is time for Deshaun Watson right now. It's time. We need him. We really do.
Yeah.
And, with them not moving anything at the trade deadline, I do not, just because for as many criticisms that I have about this front office, they're not dumb. They are not stupid. They are very, very smart individuals. And, was it concerning that they didn't want to shell out a 5th-round pick for Jacoby Brissett? Yeah, it was kind of disconcerting that they stood pat at that 6th rounder, right? They said, hey, we're not doing any better than a 6th rounder. That was a little disencouraging, but there's no way that they would have made that move without a doubt in their mind that Deshaun Watson would start against the Ravens in 2 weeks. And he flat out needs to be there because this team is not beating the Ravens with PJ Walker. As great as the defense is, there's weakness. The biggest weakness to this defense right now is misdirection.
Oh gosh,
and Baltimore has one hell of a tape compilation, facing this Browns defense with all their misdirections, all their counters, the read option. And as great as this defensive is, throw on the tape with read option, throw on the tape with the misdirections, and they don't handle it well just simply because of how aggressive this defense is in nature. They get caught lacking, so to speak, a lot of times. So it's going to be really interesting. But just kind of to shift focus here going forward, the trade deadline came and went.
Yeah.
All the Browns did was flip Donovan Peoples-Jones for a 6th-round pick, which I will say, I am sad to see Donovan go. I really wish that he would have been one of those Cleveland for lifers because ever since that he was on this team, he's made a great impact. In 2020, he probably had one of the turning point. He was a part of the turning point in Cincinnati to where, he caught that game-winning pass, and then in 2021, when Odell left and Jarvis went down, he became that wide receiver 1. And in 2022, he stepped up in this wide receiver 2 role and almost got 1,000 yards. Now in 2023, and to be fair,
he's done nothing.
You have Amari Cooper as wide receiver 1. You have Elijah Moore as your X factor wide receiver, and you got to get David Njoku the ball. So,
Yeah.
in all fairness, that leaves Donovan Peoples-Jones out, and 17 targets in 7 games. They flipped him for a pick, and they weren't going to pay him anyway. So that
Yeah.
was, it is whatever. Truly, I think that he was worth more, but you are what the market is. Market
Yeah.
said he was a 6th rounder. They shelled him out, and now they at least got something for him. So other
who's
than
going to
that
return
deal,
punts, Mac?
well,
Because Peoples Jones was awful at returning punts. He looked slower than molasses in January. The only reason I think that they would put him out there as the punt returner is because his hands were good. However,
yes,
there were so many instances to where he either didn't catch the ball and should have, or tried to catch the ball and shouldn't have. I mean, I had no idea why they even had him returning punts. But who's next?
So who's next? It's it's a toss up between if they're activating Jalen Darden. We saw Elijah Moore in that one punt return. Last game, and to be honest with you, I would like to see Elijah Moore return some more punts. I think that he is electric with the ball in his hands, and
Do
it's
you
just
think he'll
another
do it?
way to get. I think he will.
Okay.
I
I didn't know if
absolutely
he
do.
was kind of at that status level in the receivers to where he's like, hey, listen, I want to get paid like a number one, and I don't want to be returning punts with injury risk.
Well,
Mhm.
the extension of the run game with Elijah Moore has not worked out to how we thought it would be.
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, I believe he has 2 fumbles on the year in terms of just carrying the football in general. And then with PJ Walker coming in, his volume has gone down. David Njoku emerged as that second target. So,
I'm so glad
if
we have
I'm
Njoku.
yeah, and if I'm Elijah Moore, I'm saying, hey, returning punts is another way to get the football and to show how electric I am and to contribute. So
Yeah.
I would love for Elijah Moore to return some punts. He's definitely good at it. He's one of
Yeah.
those players to where he's small, he can accelerate quickly, and he's very agile. So that kind of makes him, one of the best. And he's done it before.
Let's see who
So-
the
Yeah.
depth charts on have him listed as for punt returner. All right, so here you go, Mac. So punt returner number 1, Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
Kick returner will be Pierre Strong.
which
That's good.
which I do like Pierre. I think that they need to get him the ball more because on average he is their best running back in terms of yards per carry. And the way he hits the hole, I mean, Jerome Ford is fast and can accelerate and can explode through the hole. But,
Mhm.
You look how Pierre Strong hits the hole, and there's no other running back on the roster that can do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's got the vision of Hunt with more explosion than Ford. So, we need to get him more touches, whether that's in the
Mhm.
passing game, whether that's in the run game. So, I would definitely love to see him just touch the ball more in the future. But, with that being said, Donovan's gone. That's the one move that they made. Outside of that, how did you guys feel with how the Browns attacked the trade deadline?
That's a tough one for me. It's because the emotional side of you wanted Jacoby Brissett back. And that's the side of you that was like, okay, he was able to do some stuff last year with a better defense, with a better overall team, with better play calling. Who knows what could happen with Jacoby Brissett filling in that starting position while Deshaun is still recovering. And that could have potentially gave Deshaun more recovery time if it was an absolute necessity. But front office must have faith that Deshaun's going to be back sooner than expected. I wish we could have gotten, not necessarily, I'm not mad that we didn't get Derrick Henry because that was the big chatter, like, Browns are going to get Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook. I'm not mad that we didn't get either one of those players, although it would have been a push for our offense, which could have sparked us, few points here, a few points there, a few yards here, a few yards there. But they must know something that we don't, long term, I guess. I wish we could have gotten a little more out of DPJ. I mean, I'm kind of like you, Mac. I'm going to miss him,
Mhm.
but I wish we could have gotten a little more out of him. 6th-round pick, I felt like was not enough. I'm not saying that we got robbed or anything, but I feel like we could have gotten a 5th or a 4th potentially. But that's just how I feel. I'm not too mad about it, but the emotional side of you wishes we could have done something. But you know,
Yeah, I got a theory on Jacoby Brissett because to give up a 5th-round pick to get him based off of what he's not an unproven commodity for us in our offense. He is a proven commodity that has performed at an adequate level, not a high level, but an adequate level.
yeah,
So the fact that they could have gave up a 5th-round pick for Jacoby Brissett tells me what Jake just said, that front office must feel really good about Watson coming back full speed very soon. Or B is they didn't want to have a potential QB controversy if they did bring in Jacoby Brissett and he played extremely well and they absolutely dominated
Mhm.
the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. They didn't want to have a split locker room because I can tell you what, a lot of those players love Jacoby Brissett. And they loved him legitimately. Like he was a real leader in that locker room. So maybe they just did not want to risk that divisiveness if
yeah,
Jacoby did come in and play good. And if that's the reason, I hope it's Jake's reason, but if that's the reason, then that just tells you that their head's not in the right place. They don't care about winning right now. Because if you did, you make that move. You don't take any more chances with PJ Walker, and you try and win games now. But I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of why we didn't make the move for Jacoby Brissett. To be honest with you,
There was kind of one move that I wish that they would have made. 49ers got away with highway robbery. I'm talking about grand larceny. I'm talking about they went into the Smithsonian and they stole one of the most expensive paintings off the wall for next to nothing. And I mean, it's a 3rd-round pick to the point to where it's and I don't, forgive me, I don't know the actual terminology here, but 49ers traded a 3rd-round pick for Chase Young. Now, if Chase Young didn't get injured, Chase Young would have already been extended, would have had, so much production to the point to where, you could circle him and say he's a definitive top 15 edge rusher in the league. Absolutely. So the 49ers trade a 3rd-round pick for this guy, and if he walks in free agency, they get a conditional 3rd-round pick back. Okay? Here's my thing. You look across the defensive line right now, Ogbo Okoronkwo is coming back next year. He signed a multi-year deal.
yep,
Biggest question mark in the room is Za'Darius Smith. And
Yep.
while Za'Darius Smith has been good, he's in between above average and great.
he's moving more towards Jadeveon Clowney level of production. When he started out, he was absolutely on fire. I think he
And
was a huge. Sorry, go ahead.
well, my problem with him is that he's getting pressures he's not getting home. And a lot of the issue when you flip on tape, because you could bring up the metrics and you'll say, okay, well, he's being productive and he's pressuring the quarterback, not necessarily getting home, but he's affecting throws. But here's the thing: a lot of missed tackles, a lot of losing contain on the edge. There's a lot of times to where you'll see a quarterback break free on the edge, or you'll see an end around or a toss or a misdirection or a sweep where Za'Darius Smith gets caught upfield.
Yeah, he pinches
and he
in
loses
instead of
it.
containing. Yep.
Exactly. So, the fact that Chase Young was on the table and they didn't pull the trigger on him was a bit disappointing. Now, I can understand the whole premise here, because if you don't pay Chase Young, he's a half-year rental. So he doesn't really necessarily solve the long term, but it just kind of goes back to my point, or to your point here, Dave. I walked out of the trade deadline thinking that they're not in win now mode.
Yep.
They're not. like in terms of their mind, of course, in terms of players and coaches, they want to win now. Their goal is to make the playoffs. Their goal is to win the division. Their goal is to win now. But the front office is just obsessed with this, this 5-year plan, this trust the process that we heard from AB at the bye week. And it's just, you already, quote unquote, sold your soul for Deshaun Watson. 3 first-round picks, $230 million, all guaranteed.
Yep.
So, and I get you don't want to be desperate, because you could even argue that the Deshaun Watson move was a bit desperate, right? But at what point are they going to be like, hey, we got to win now?
Mm-hmm.
Myles Garrett's going to be 29. Denzel Ward's getting up there in age.
Yep.
You got to pay Greg Newsome. You got to pay Grant Delpit. You got to pay Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. What are you doing at linebacker after the 1-year contracts of Sione Takitaki and Anthony Walker are up? What are you doing at defensive tackle? Because no one outside of Dalvin Tomlinson signed long term. You don't know about Jordan Elliott. You don't know what's going on with Mo Hurst after the season. And that's just on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
You don't know what's going to go. Now, I would hope that Nick Chubb comes back. I would hope that he gets, another year, but you don't know anything about him. You don't know anything about Amari Cooper going forward. What's Elijah Moore, he needs extended. There's all these players on the roster where their uncertainty is up in the air. Okay. Why are they even talking about a 5-year plan when they should be all in now? And you look at a team like the 49ers, okay? The 49ers have given up picks for Trey Lance, right? He didn't work out. Now they found a gold mine in Brock Purdy, but they're also on a 3-game skid. And they kind of sat with each other and they go, okay, well, trade deadline, a player that can make this team better is available. We're going to go get him. 3rd-round pick. That's not going to cost as much.
Yep.
My thing is that I wish they would have been buyers at the deadline, because then that would have shown me, hey, they're thinking win now and they want to improve the team now. And again, I'm not faulting them for the DPJ trade, but it doesn't make them better now. And they need to be better now, because that 2025 6th-round pick, it doesn't help them now. It doesn't even help them for next year. So it's just, to me, I just wish they would have made a move. I wish they would have done something to improve the team, because while, it's great that they're telling us, hey, Deshaun Watson's going to be right. It's great seeing all these practice videos of him, airing the ball out, and, he's back at practice, right? And he's making these throws. That's great. But he's not on the field yet.
Yeah.
He's not in between the whistles yet. He doesn't have shoulder pads on. So we don't know. And for them to not make a move at the trade deadline when we all know that they can get better and they have areas of improvement, I wish they would have done it. I just wish they would.
Yeah. And not only that, I agree with you totally on that. A lot of Browns fans are starting to become impatient, especially when all of the stakes are high or the expectations are high. We were talking about this right when week 1 started. What's going to be, the end result. And we were thinking Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. And we had the team to do that. I'm not trying to shame people that said that, because that was possible.
Yep.
And with everything that's happened, I think a lot of Browns fans, speaking from a fan's point of view, our hopes and expectations are slowly dropping, and so is the patience.
Just a little bit.
In the last 5 years, we thought, we can do this. We can do this. We have a chance of making the playoffs. We have a chance of making the division, winning the division. I'm sorry. And yes, we are technically in the playoff race right now, and even though it's just week 8, week 9 this weekend, but still, there's so much uncertainty, like Matt just explained to a T. So much uncertainty with what's going to happen in the future, and it is almost concerning if front office is like, okay, we're just trying to set up for the future, when a lot of people are ready for it now. We've waited and waited and waited. We've went through
Well, yeah.
too many bad things.
I've written two
Just-
$4,400 checks the last 2 years, Jake, and expected to see winning football down there. My seats are not cheap. I
Yeah,
am not rich. That is a lot of allocated money. I don't go out and drink at bars. I don't party
yeah,
and all this other stuff. I
yeah.
choose to spend what money I have on my
Hmm.
Browns and my
Yep.
experience at that stadium. And I'm getting really tired every year. My seats go up. They started at 3,600, then they go to 38, then they go to 4. Now they went to 42 last year. Now they're at 44 this year. And it's just the same shit over and over again. And I am
Yeah.
tired of paying to feel miserable on Sundays. That's
Yeah.
what Browns fans are tired of that go
Yeah.
down there. Mac, are you going down there this weekend?
I will not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, me, I've been a bit stubborn. You know, after this whole thing, I'm just kind of more or less waiting out just to see what happens this
You're on
season.
protest.
I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I have a bit love-hate relationship with
Yeah.
this team right now.
Yeah.
If
Unfortunately,
I'm
my
being
check's already
honest.
been written and I can't
Um,
take it back, a prorated portion, unfortunately.
But looking forward, this Sunday, the Browns are facing the 1-7 Arizona Cardinals. And to walk you guys through here, you know, this is a team, and keyword should. How many times have we seen this before?
Oh
Where an
gosh.
inferior team comes in, Browns lose, and you know, we're all talking about how we were surprised. And
Yep.
after a deflating win in Seattle, you know,
Mhm.
a lot of bad taste, you know, on the plane ride home. So, you know, hopefully they can get it done there. In terms of looking at this team, there's really not much to talk about in terms of the Cardinals. You know, fourth best rushing offense, but they did lose James Conner to the year to IR. They got this guy, Amari Demercado.
He's
Who's the
good.
starting running back. He's good, but he's yet to rush over 80 yards in a game. You know, the Arizona Cardinals has an okay offensive line, not one of the best. So I do kind of expect the D line to take care of business on that front.
Mhm.
Currently, for right now,
Yeah.
unless you know anything changes, Kyler Murray will not be suiting up. They're still kind of taking him day to day right now.
Yeah.
A guy named Clayton Tune is their starting signal caller.
Yeah.
Fifth round rookie from Houston, has only thrown one career pass. Their
Mhm.
wide receiving core is okay, very explosive. But you know, we're looking at Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore, two very speedy wide receivers. They don't exactly have a big target. And the rookie Trey McBride.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on the defensive side, they really have two good players: free safety Buda Baker, and defensive end Xavier Collins. After that, it's just kind of a bunch of fill players, and their defense is 31st in points per drive.
Yeah.
So you know, if the people at home were zoning out as I was just dumping statistics on you, plain and simple, the Browns should take care of business. This is a rebuilding team, and even with Kyler Murray out there, you know, I expect this team to win. They have to take care of business here, and you know, Deshaun's not going to play, so they got to. More than likely, he's not going to play.
Right.
I don't see it. You know, unless he
Oh,
responds really good,
Mhm.
because you also have to think with this injury. The reason why they're calling it day to day is that, you know, he could go out, he could throw and make these passes, but they also have to worry about his recovery time the next day, because you got to
Yeah.
think about it. He's still rehabbing this injury. So part of it is he's going to come in for medical treatment, and their first question is going to be, how's it feel? How did it
Yeah.
respond to those passes yesterday? So that's going to
Mhm.
be something to look at. But, you know, even if Deshaun Watson doesn't go, they should take care of business. This is a
Yeah.
very inferior Arizona Cardinals team.
Predict the score, Mac.
Predict the score. Okay.
With PJ Walker.
With PJ Walker.
Yep.
27-10 Browns.
That's a good one.
I
The
you know,
defense must have scored
I
two
think-
touchdowns on that prediction.
well, you know, I think it's going to be one of those to where it's too close early, you know, like disgustingly close to where everybody's, you know, going to be whining and complaining, you know, on Twitter saying, hey, how are we this close with the Cardinals? I do think that they break away late. But, you know, here's the thing. If Clayton Tune starts at quarterback, Clayton Tune,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, I had to Google who this guy is, and you know,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty in touch with football, right? So the average NFL fan is hearing Clayton Tune, who?
Yeah.
Dude,
Right?
you know how many
So-
no-name quarterbacks I've watched turn into Joe Montana at Brown Stadium in the
Yeah.
last 5 to 10 years? Uncountable amount of mediocre to bad quarterbacks that for some reason God just chooses to infuse them with the DNA of Dan Marino and Michael Vick, and they look amazing against us. I hope that doesn't happen, but I've seen it so many times, dude, that it scares me to death when I hear a nobody starting.
I don't see that happening with this defense because a lot of those quarterbacks that have
I agree.
been, you know, all of a sudden amazing against the Browns, that's because the defenses we've had were just not good.
Yeah, zone
This
defense.
I mean, now this defense, of course, they've got some improvement to do here and there, tweaking to do, but I don't see Clayton Tune becoming a magician against this Browns defense. I
Thank
will
you for
be
talking me off the ledge,
flabbergasted
Jake.
if that happens. They're going to rely mostly on the running game, and our front seven will probably contain that pretty well. We'll force Clayton Tune to make some good big throws, and then if he can't make them, then I would say Clayton Tune will probably throw a pick or two. If he doesn't, don't come at me saying I was wrong, but
Never.
I don't
Never.
see him throwing like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, stuff like that. I just
What's your
don't.
score prediction, Jake?
I'm going to say 2014 because offense will
Okay.
probably have a couple struggles here and there. The Cardinals defense is not like elite, amazing, fantastic, but they're smart. If they can hold the Ravens, was it 27 or 21?
What the Cardinals did to the Ravens? It was.
Yes. I want to say it was 21-7, right? I can't remember the exact score.
I'm looking at
But
it.
Baltimore did not score a lot on them. I don't expect us to score a max of 20. Now, of course, we scored 20 on Seattle's defense, and Seattle's defense is a lot better than Arizona's. But I'm still thinking somewhere along the lines of 20-23, 20-14, 23-14, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a couple of mistakes on the offensive end, fumble, pick, and Arizona will capitalize off of that and get points off of that. The 14, the only reason I'm saying 14 is points off turnovers. If there's no turnovers, Arizona might score 7 max.
Right.
If there's no turnovers.
Well, they gave up 31 to Baltimore.
31.
Yeah,
Okay.
31. So my prediction, real quick, and Jake, I don't know if you were finished. If you weren't, obviously, I'll be quiet.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the defense gets it done. I don't think the offense for the Browns is going to be very efficient at all. But I do think they walk away, and I'm going to say 13-6 Browns. And let's focus on the Ravens and getting Deshaun Watson back after this victory. That's my prediction.
But let's not overlook Arizona because we
Bingo.
essentially overlooked Detroit 2 years ago when they were 0-10. And that was the only game I went to that year, and the weather was just atrocious.
Yep.
And we almost lost. We almost gave the 0-10, I think it was 0-10 at the time, Detroit Lions their first win. I was sick. I was sick until the very end of that game.
Yep.
So we can't overlook the Cardinals. No.
All right, guys. Well, I mean,
So before we wrap up here, as always, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We will now, granted, we did have a week absence here, but we will be more in tune going forward. So make sure that you follow us. We will be having giveaways soon. our new merch. We put out 2 more t-shirts this year, the Muni Lot as well as the Nick Chubb. And there will be more to follow, as well as giveaways. And the first people that are included in the giveaways are the people that follow us. So go ahead,
Right.
do yourself a favor. It's free. We're not
Mhm.
charging you anything.
Wait, it costs
Um,
nothing?
It costs nothing to follow.
And they have to, of all the thousands of options they have to get Browns entertainment, all they have to do is click a button for us, and then they'll watch us every week.
All they got to
Okay.
do is click a button.
All right, sounds pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, it's always been a pleasure here. It's great joining you. We will have a fuller house next week, but hopefully they take care of business this Sunday against the Cardinals. And as always,
There you go.
Woo!
Go
Go Browns, baby.
Go
Yeah.